Hey guys. I hope you guys had an awesome spring break. We are officially back, which means that it is time to kind of recap a little bit on Midsummer Night's Dream and pick up where we left off. So if you remember, the 2 weeks prior to spring break, we were studying and reading A Midsummer Night's Dream. So as of this point, if you're watching this video, you should have already read Act 1 and 2. And so today we will do a quick recap of Act 2 and get you set up and prepared to read Act 3. So remember, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. So Act 1, if you'll remember, for a full recap of Act 1, you can watch the video from week 2, where the most recent video before this one, we recapped fully Act 1 to prepare you to go into Act 2. So if you want a full recap on that, that goes a little bit more in depth, go back and watch that video. But remember, Act 1 was all about introducing us to the humans in our play. Because remember, this play is split between the human world and the fairy world, and how the interference of the fairy world causes all kinds of chaos for the humans. So remember, Act 1, we meet our king and queen, Hippolyta and Theseus, the queen to be, because remember, it's about to be their nuptial day, so they're about to get married. So they were one of our storylines of the 4. Remember, there are 4 main storylines within this play that we're focused on. So Theseus and Hippolyta were one. They're about to get married. And then we met the lovers. So we had Hermia and Lysander, and then Helena and Demetrius. And remember, Hermia is betrothed or is supposed to marry Demetrius as per her father's wishes. But Hermia is actually in love with Lysander. And then Helena comes into the mix because Helena is Hermia's best friend. They have been best friends their entire lives. They refer to each other as bedfellows as they've grown up together. And Helena is in love with Demetrius and divulges to us at the end of Act 1 that she has previously had a relationship or relations with Demetrius, but he since left her in interest of Hermia. So currently, both Lysander and Demetrius are after Hermia. Hermia wants to be with Lysander, and then Helena is chasing Demetrius. And remember that Hermia's dad brings her to the king, Theseus and Hippolyta. They interrupt that conversation about their wedding, so that the king can, tell Hermia for Aegis, her father, that she cannot in fact marry Lysander if her father's wishes mean that she is betrothed to Demetrius. So remember, that whole conversation happens, and then Lysander and Hermia decide that they are going to run away together because they love each other. They want to be together. So they have decided that it's best for them to run away and get married and live away from Athens. They are, going to leave the king and queen. They're going to leave Hermia's father and live happily ever after, essentially. But before they leave, they run into Helena. Helena finds out their plan. Helena decides that the best way to gain the favor of Demetrius is to tell Demetrius Hermia and Lysander's plan so that he can then chase after Hermia. Helena's a crazy one. So that was essentially all of the introductions to the people that we have in Act 1. So we have all of that happening, and then and also remember, we meet kind of the country bumpkin, like rude mechanical people in the end of Act 1. So remember, the kind of comic relief of the play, or the whole show is a comedy. The whole show is very funny, but they are kind of meant to be kind of where we're seeing all of the classes of, who would have been in Shakespeare's time. We're kind of seeing, oh, we have the king and the queen. Oh, we have, the more elite in the lovers. And now we have the lowest level, which are kind of these rude mechanicals, is how they're referred to often. And they are going to be putting on a play for the king and queen's nuptial day. And so they all gather, and we're introduced to Bottom, who is very much, has a very strong personality and is very much the stereotypical actor, thinking that he can act every single role perfectly, better than anybody else. And yeah, so he, we have him, and then we also have Peter Quince, who is kind of the director of the group, and trying to handle everybody and get them to come together and teach them their roles and to try and put on a good play for the king and queen. So we're also introduced to them. And at the end of Act 1, we find out that all of these groups that we've discussed are headed into the woods. So Hermia and Lysander are headed into the woods to run away. Demetrius and Helena are now going to be headed into the woods chasing after them, or Demetrius chasing them, Helena chasing Demetrius. And then we now have the rude mechanicals headed into the woods to rehearse their play. So that's what brings us into Act 2. So all of that information about the human world we get in Act 1. So now let's review everything that we would have done or that we would have found out in Act 2. Okay? So Act 2. Act 2 is super fun because it's all about the fairies. So we've spent an entire act already being introduced to all of the humans and all of their storylines. So now we get an entire act dedicated to all of our fairy characters. And we have a main storyline that is forming. So at the very, very top of Act 1, we are introduced to the character Puck. Now, Puck is arguably one of the most important characters in this play because he is what we call a catalyst. And now, if you guys remember, we did throw that word around a couple of times this school year, but the catalyst is the inciting action, is the moment that stirs everything up and creates the conflict for there to be a play. So every story has a catalyst that kind of starts all of the initial action. So Puck is very much a catalyst in and of himself for this play. Or I say himself. It's actually a very gender ambiguous character. So it some people do it as a he, some people do it as a she, could be a they, them. Puck is a very, gender fluid character. But just for continuity's sake, I will be referring to him as he. But yes, so we are introduced to Puck, who is speaking with another fairy, that is one of Titania's fairies, Peaseblossom. And so they are having this entire conversation, and it appears to just be at first, a conversation between two fairies. However, it's actually a very, very important conversation because Puck, we discover, is Oberon's right-hand man. Oberon is the king of the fairies, we come to find out. And then Peaseblossom is one of the fairies that dotes on the queen, the fairy queen, Titania. And so they are basically two servants to the king and queen of the fairies, and they are coming together and having this conversation. And this conversation is actually very important because in this conversation, they are telling us about the fight that is currently going on between Titania and Oberon. So we find out that Titania and Oberon have a very on-again, off-again relationship. Sometimes they love each other, sometimes they don't. Currently, they are fighting. And we come to find out there's this, entire conversation. So we have the conversation between Puck and Peaseblossom that, establishes that the king and queen are currently fighting. Well, then we have the king and queen of the fairies, Titania and Oberon, entering the scene, and they are having an entire argument and conversation with each other about why they are fighting. So come to find out that the reason they're fighting is over this little changeling boy. And this changeling boy is literally a human boy, a little human boy. And Oberon wants him and wants to take him for his own. But Titania is currently the one that has him, and she refuses to let the changeling boy go with Oberon because um the mother of the changeling boy was one of Titania's best friends. She gives this very long, beautiful monologue about the relationship that she had with his mother. And so basically she just pisses Oberon off because Oberon is used to getting everything that he wants. He's the king of the fairies. He has magical powers. He, can control the elements, as can Titania. And that is actually something that is mentioned in Puck and Peace Blossom's conversation, is how the world is currently being affected for both the fairy realm and the human world by the strong emotions that are happening between Oberon and Titania, because they have control over the elements. They are fairies. They have these very, very strong magical abilities. So the fact that they are fighting right now is causing a lot of stress in both the human world and the fairy realm, because they just have so much power. So anyways, they're essentially just fighting over this changeling boy and the fact that Titania is not willing to relinquish the boy to Oberon. So that is literally the entire argument. And so Titania leaves the scene. She has told him Oberon once more that she is not going to bequeath the changeling boy onto him, and basically puts her foot down and says, that's that. Well, obviously this still pisses off Oberon. And so Oberon calls over Puck and decides that he is going to essentially pull a prank on Titania. And he tells Puck to go off and find this beautiful blue flower. And this specific flower, when the juices from this flower are spread over the eyes of another, it causes them to go to sleep. And when they wake up, he can essentially they fall in love with the first thing that they see. So he is wanting Puck to do this to Titania so that when she wakes up, like, to have something really gross and disgusting near, like a snake or, something gross that she would fall in love with and then be in love with, something gross, just to kind of pull this prank on her. So that is essentially how we leave Act 2, is that we have this entire fight with Oberon and Titania, and then Oberon sends Puck off to get this flower. And then so that's kind of all happening. And then then we also have the reintroduction of the lovers into the scene. So we have all of these exchanges between the fairies, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of Oberon and Puck's conversation, we have this quarrel between the lovers. So Puck goes and finds a special flower and then comes back and has this conversation with Oberon. And then we have the lovers entering the scene. So Helena and Demetrius come into the scene, and they are hunting for Hermia and Lysander. There is this entire funny exchange where Helena is just not willing to give up on Demetrius. They have this entire moment together, and then Oberon sees this entire exchange between these two humans, feels bad that Helena is pining so much after Demetrius, and then Oberon tells Puck to go while he is supposed to be going and putting the juice from the flower on Titania's eyes, he also sees these two lovers, and he's like, you know what? Puck, I want you to also follow these two Athenians, and I want you to put the juice on Demetrius's eyes so that he will fall in love with Helena when he awakens. And that rounds out Act 2, Scene 1. So this is the first instance where the fairies are starting to interfere with the human realm, and it starts to go really wrong. So that was all stuff that happens in Act 2, Scene 1. So then Act 2, Scene 2, we have Titania coming back in. She's having all of her like fairy servants come in and get her ready to go to sleep. Once she's asleep, Oberon comes in and places the juice on her eyelids, and hopes that when she wakes up, she'll see something disgusting. So we have this moment. So Titania is sleeping off to the side. Oberon has put the juice from this magical flower over her eyes. And now we're just waiting for her to wake up in the hopes that she wakes up and sees something disgusting. Sorry, my dog is now in here and messing with stuff. But yes, so we have that moment. Then we have this moment where Lysander and Hermia re-enter the scene, and they are tired. They've been running all day, like running through the forest, getting lost. And then, hello, you want to say hi? This is Bella, for those of you that haven't seen her yet. What, baby? Yes, we'll go play in just a minute. Okay, hold on. So Lysander and Hermia enter the scene, and they, they've been running around all day, getting lost in the woods, and so they're tired, they're ready to go to sleep. And then there's this whole exchange about how, Lysander wants to sleep right next to Hermia, but Hermia says, no, we aren't married yet, so you sleep over here, I'm going to sleep over here. So they sleep a decent distance apart, which is important because this gives Puck an opportunity to come in and mess with stuff. So at this point, Oberon has only told Puck to put the juice from the flower on Athenian eyes. So Puck sees this couple and assumes that these are the Athenians that Oberon is talking to. So instead of putting the juice from the flower on Demetrius's eyes to make Demetrius love Helena, he puts the juice on Lysander's eyes, all right, which becomes very, very important. So at this point, Oberon has put the juice on Titania's eyes. She's sleeping off to the side, waiting to awaken and see something gross, hopefully, in Oberon's perspective. And now we have Lysander and Hermia who have gone to sleep, and Puck has put the juice from the flower on Lysander's eyes. Well, then Helena and Demetrius come back into the scene, or I'm sorry, just Helena comes back into the scene, and Helena sees them lying there on the ground, and she thinks that something might be wrong, even though they're just sleeping. She's like, oh, here they are, just lying on the ground. I hope everything's okay. So Helena immediately goes over and tries to wake up Lysander. Well, of course, because he has had the juice from this flower put on his eyes, he wakes up, and even though previously he was clearly in love with Hermia, Lysander first sees Helena, therefore Lysander is now in love with Helena because of the spell, from the flower. So all of a sudden we have big issues, right? Because now we have Lysander and Hermia, who were previously in love. Now Lysander is pining after Helena, while Demetrius is still running around the woods pining after Hermia. And so this whole exchange happens. Hermia is still asleep over here. Lysander wakes up and is all of a sudden in love with Helena. Helena is very confused, doesn't understand what's going on. She's never had any feelings for Lysander. She knows that Lysander truly loves Hermia. She is confused right now. So there's this entire very, very funny exchange that happens between Lysander and Helena, and then they run off. And then Act 2 ends with Hermia waking up alone, saying that she had this dream where Lysander left her, and lo and behold, she's alone and Lysander is nowhere to be found. And that is what leads us into Act 3. And Act 3, all kinds of stuff happens. And so that is where you guys will be picking up this week. So I hope you have enjoyed this recap of Acts 1 and 2. remember we hadn't talked about Act 2 yet, so that was why I wanted to make sure to go in depth about everything that happened. Just like the previous 2 weeks, I will post the link. Remember, the best version of the script for you guys to be reading is the No Fear Shakespeare version that is offered by SparkNotes online. It has the original Shakespearean text right next to translated versions into more modern English for you guys to easily understand. So just remember that is the best version for you guys to use. I encourage you to use that one. I will post a link. I know some people have had a problem with the link working. If it doesn't work on your school computer, you can absolutely access it on your phone. It shouldn't be a problem. It's a free website. It's totally free resource. So I would encourage you to use that one so that, you have the modern English right next to you. And I know, obviously, there are plenty of synopses online about this play. But I do encourage you to actually read it. I really do encourage you to attempt to read the Shakespeare. You never know when we might do a Shakespeare as a play after school. Who knows what next year might bring? But so I do encourage you to try your hand at the original Shakespearean text. Bella just really wants to say hi today. Say hi. Oh, hello. Yes, we're gonna go on a walkie. She wants to go on a walk. So yes, so you never know. It's always a good thing. Oh my gosh, she really wants to go. I'm sorry. Bella, stop. Oh my goodness. Sorry, she really wants to go. But yes, so you never know when you will need to use some Shakespearean text. There are a ton of really, really good male and female monologues in this show. Even some non-gender or gender non-specific monologues for Puck and things in here. So really, really good source of monologues for Shakespeare if you need any. So I do strongly encourage you guys to actually be reading the script instead of just looking up a synopsis online. But as long as you're getting the content, but I would like to encourage you to actually read the script. Just like every other week, I will be posting a list of questions that you can answer either while you read or after you read, just to make sure that you're catching all of those really important moments within each act. So remember, this is our first week back from spring break. So read Act 3 next. We had read Act 1 and 2. So this week I want you guys to read Act 3 so that next week I will recap Act 3 for you and we'll move on to Act 4 and so on and so on. I also just wanted to take a brief moment at the end here to remind you guys how the virtual learning stuff is going to be going for the next couple of weeks. So right now, this content that we're doing is still considered the enrichment exercises and things that we were doing before spring break. So we are going to finish up Midsummer by end of April, and then we are going to move into some new stuff. I am working on the new content for you guys. So right now, basically this April 14th, so yesterday through April 24th, if you are someone who has a low grade in the class, or just wants to better your grade at all, I encourage you to use this time. This is the time that you're supposed to be doing recovery work. So it is not required, but it is an opportunity. I have recovery packets posted to every Schoology page with a list of options of things that you can do. There are some writing prompts that you can do where if you write me a page based off of the writing prompt, I will count that as a grade. You can be completing this stuff if you are completing the the reading questions for Midsummer, I will count those assignments towards assignments that I get, towards assignments that you might have missed during the semester. There is a whole slew of options for you all to complete any missing work for me or to redo any assignments that you might have gotten a low grade on, in order to bring up your Q3 grade. I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage all of you to be looking at these options. I tried to reach out to some of you personally, but I can only reach out but so much. A lot of this has to come from you guys, okay? So if you are someone who would like to better your grade, and that's not even if you have a D or an F, if you have a C or a B and you're trying to bring it up to an A, you can do recovery work and bring yourself up to better your overall GPA, to better your overall average. That's totally fine as well. But especially if you have a D or an F, I very strongly encourage you to take this opportunity. This is not a normal situation. This is not a normal opportunity. There's no excuse not to leave this 9 weeks with an A just by doing the recovery work. Okay. It's not hard stuff. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to email me or message me on Schoology. I am very happy to answer any questions. But the April 24th deadline, so next Friday, April 24th, that is a very hard deadline. That is a deadline from the county. And it has to be adhered to. That is not just a me deadline. That is a county and school deadline. So I will not be able to receive any additional work after Friday, April 24th at 4 p.m. So any recovery work that you are wanting to do, please, please, please make sure that you are working on it over the next 2 weeks and get it into me by Friday, the 24th at 4 p.m. Okay. Other than that, so after that, starting Wednesday, May 6th, every Wednesday from May 6th through June 3rd, you guys are going to receive new lessons from me. I'm still kind of working out the kinks on what exactly we will be learning together. With a lot of you guys, I wanted to go into heavier scene work, with my advanced theater kids, we were working on our devised theater piece. So we're having to kind of take a very big shift for the end of the school year. So we might take this opportunity to do some tech theater stuff, maybe learn about some topics that we wouldn't have normally learned about. So I will keep you guys posted. I am working on that stuff over the next couple of weeks. So I will keep you guys posted on what kinds of things we will be doing for the new learning starting May 6th. But it will be a similar format where you guys will get a video from me. And then there will be some kind of activity attached. It'll probably be a lot of Nearpods or ed puzzles. But like I said, you guys will get more information on that as I'm kind of figuring it out for myself. But remember, these are going to be required assignments. They will not be graded, but in order for you to get credit for completing the course, you do have to be actively involved each week. So it will be just one lesson once a week, every Wednesday, is when they'll be posted. So you'll have until the following Wednesday to finish it, but you have to be actively engaged. If I post a Nearpod, do it. If I post an ed puzzle, do it. That will count as your attendance. And I'll be there to provide feedback if you guys are having trouble with anything or to provide clarity in any way that I can. My office hours, if you guys didn't see the email yesterday or the message I sent via Schoology, my office hours are now 10 to 1 instead of the 9 to 12 I was doing. So 10 to 1, Monday through Friday is the best time to reach out to me. I'm actively on my computer. But other than that, send me a message and I will get back to you as soon as I see it. But yeah, you guys, I'm here for you. I'm also toying around with the idea of doing maybe like a virtual drama club every week, just as, an additional way to connect with each other, maybe try to get everybody in a Zoom conference and maybe play some like virtual theater games. I'm still kind of trying to work out the kinks of that, but yeah, I want us to, I know that you guys have a lot of other stuff going on and other SOL bearing classes and things like that. So I want that stuff to be your main focus. So when you do focus on your work for theater, I want it to just be fun. I want it to be something that you can come and, is a little more lighthearted and not super stressful. So, if you guys have ideas for anything that you would want to do in a drama club setting, I've got the class stuff covered. But if you guys have any ideas about a virtual drama club that you would like to do, please feel free to message me and we can get something going. But other than that, you guys, that's all I have for you right now. Make sure this week that you are reading Act 3, and I will also post the discussion questions, like kind of the reading questions, just to make sure that you're understanding everything while you go. And I'll post the link again for the No Fear Shakespeare version of Midsummer. Again, if the link for whatever reason doesn't work, you can literally Google search No Fear Shakespeare Midsummer, and you should be able to access it very easily. But yeah, as always, let me know if you have any questions. Hope everybody enjoyed their spring break to the best of their ability. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.